The storm raged with fury, waves towering like mountains and wind howling like a banshee. Thomas Reid, a sailor aboard the North Wind, struggled to keep the ship steady, but the sea was relentless, and the ship met its end on jagged rocks near the cliffs of Seabrook Bay. When Thomas awoke, he was on the rocky shore, battered but alive. Through the haze of pain and exhaustion, he spotted the tall silhouette of a lighthouse standing against the stormy sky. Summoning his remaining strength, he staggered toward it. At the door, he was greeted by a stern older man with piercing eyes and a lantern in hand. "You're lucky to be alive," the man said. "Come inside before the storm finishes the job." The lighthouse keeper, Elias Harper, was a no-nonsense man who had served the coast for decades. He led Thomas to a small kitchen where a young woman was tending to a pot over the fire. "This is my daughter, Clara," Elias said gruffly. Clara turned, her sharp blue eyes meeting Thomas's. She was striking, with wind-tousled hair and a confidence that matched the wild sea outside. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a chair. "You need food and rest." As Clara tended to his wounds, Thomas couldn't help but notice her steady hands and determined expression. She moved with a quiet strength, and her presence was as commanding as her father's lighthouse. Over the next few days, Thomas recovered in the lighthouse. Elias was brusque, spending most of his time maintaining the light or keeping watch for other ships in trouble. Clara, however, was different. Though initially distant, she warmed to Thomas as they talked during quiet moments. Thomas shared stories of his voyages, distant lands, treacherous seas, and the camaraderie of life aboard a ship. Clara spoke of her life at the lighthouse, the isolation, and her dream of seeing the world beyond the cliffs. "You make it sound so grand," Clara said one evening, staring out at the horizon. "But the sea has taken so much from us. My mother died in a storm like the one that brought you here. My father hasn't been the same since." Thomas saw the sadness behind her strong exterior. "The sea gives and takes," he said gently. "But it also brings people together, doesn't it?" Their eyes met, and for the first time, Clara smiled. A small, fleeting smile that stayed with Thomas long after. Elias grew suspicious of Thomas as the days turned to weeks. "You've recovered," he said one morning. "It's time for you to move on." Thomas didn't argue. He knew his presence was a strain, but the thought of leaving Clara weighed heavily on him. Before he left, he sought her out. "Thank you for everything," he said. "I owe you my life." Clara hesitated, her usual confidence faltering. "Will you come back?" "If I can," he promised. "The sea may have brought me here, but it's you who made me want to stay." Before either could say more, Elias appeared. "The tide won't wait," he said curtly, leading Thomas to a small boat. Months passed, and life at the lighthouse returned to its routine. Clara missed Thomas more than she expected, though she never admitted it aloud. One night, a storm as fierce as the one that had brought Thomas erupted. Clara joined her father in the tower, guiding ships away from the treacherous rocks. Amid the chaos, a faint light appeared on the horizon, a small vessel battling the waves. "It's madness to sail in this," Elias shouted. But Clara knew who it was. "It's him," she whispered. Ignoring her father's protests, she ran to the shore, lantern in hand, signaling the boat. As the vessel drew closer, Clara saw Thomas at the helm, his determination as fierce as the storm. He stumbled onto the beach, drenched and exhausted. "I promised I'd come back," he said, breathless. Clara's heart swelled with relief and joy. "You're a fool," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Maybe," Thomas replied, stepping closer. "But I'd cross every storm for you." Elias was less than pleased to see Thomas return, but over time, he saw the love growing between him and Clara. Thomas stayed on, helping with repairs and learning the ways of the lighthouse. The quiet life was a stark contrast to his days at sea, but Thomas found peace in it, and in Clara. Together, they built a partnership as strong as the lighthouse itself, weathering the storms of life with the same resilience they'd shown from the start. For the first time in years, laughter and warmth returned to the lighthouse. The sea had taken much, but it had also given something precious, a love born in the fury of a storm and strengthened by the calm that followed.